Clear your desk by the end of the day, Avery. Human resources will handle the exit paperwork. The words shimmered on my monitor screen, stark against the dark mode background of the company chat. I blinked, trying to bring them into focus, reading the direct message from Marcus Thorne again. After 5 years of pouring my heart and soul into Apex Solutions, this was it? A cold, impersonal chat message delivered before most of Austin had even woken up. 3 days. That's all the time I had taken off. 3 short days to arrange everything after my father's sudden heart attack, to stand numbly by his grave. To try and process the gaping hole he left behind. 3 days of bereavement leave Marcus himself had approved via email just last week. We need people who can be present during critical project phases, the message continued, the cursor blinking impassively below. As if attending my own father's, my dad's funeral was some optional networking mixer I'd carelessly blown off instead of finalizing the architecture for Project Phoenix. I leaned back in my ergonomic chair, the expensive mesh groaning softly in the pre-dawn stillness of the Apex Solutions office. Most workstations were still dark, silent monoliths waiting for the day to begin. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Austin skyline was just beginning to emerge from the darkness. The sky painted in pale washes of pink and orange. I'd come in deliberately early, hoping to get ahead. To dive back into the familiar complexities of cloud infrastructure after the wrenching blur of the past week. My name is Avery Mitchell. Until approximately 2 minutes ago, I was the regional lead for the Cloud Services Division at Apex Solutions, heading up the highest performing team in the West Coast region. At 35, with a computer science degree, an MBA, and years of grinding dedication, I hadn't just built a career here. I'd built a team. Liam, Sophia, Noah, Caleb, Isabella, Chloe, Maya, Olivia, they felt more like family than colleagues. We celebrated project milestones and personal victories together. We supported each other through impossible deadlines and personal struggles. We pushed each other, challenged each other, and consistently delivered results that exceeded expectations. My gaze swept across my meticulously organized workspace. The small succulent plant, a quirky gift from the team last Christmas for surviving the OmniCorp migration. The framed photo of us all grinning, slightly sunburnt, at the company offsite near Lake Travis. The stack of handwritten thank you notes from junior engineers I'd mentored, notes that suddenly felt like relics from a past life. 5 years of my professional existence, 5 years of intellectual challenges and late nights fueled by caffeine and camaraderie. Now reduced to a few personal effects that would barely fill a standard moving box. The official termination notice, a sterile PDF attached to Marcus's curt message, cited a failure to maintain adequate leadership presence during critical operational periods as the reason. My father's unexpected death, the raw grief that still clung to me like a shroud, apparently fell smack in the middle of one of these suddenly crucial, previously unmentioned, critical periods. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach, but tears didn't come. I didn't feel the urge to scream or throw my ergonomic keyboard across the room or storm into Marcus's still empty office demanding a face-to-face explanation he was clearly avoiding. Instead, a different kind of clarity settled over me, sharp and icy. I calmly took a screenshot of the chat window, including Marcus's profile picture and the timestamp. I saved it to my personal cloud drive, along with the attached PDF. Then, I shut down my company laptop, the soft click echoing in the quiet room. I stood up, smoothed down my blazer, and began methodically, almost robotically, packing my belongings into the cardboard box I found stashed under a nearby empty desk. By the time the first few team members started straggling in, drawn by the lure of free coffee and breakfast tacos, my desk was already half cleared. Olivia Chen, our bright-eyed UI/UX designer, was the first to notice. Avery? What's going on? She asked, her usual cheerful expression faltering as her eyes took in the box and the cleared surfaces. Are you moving offices? I've been let go, Olivia, I replied, my voice even, betraying none of the turmoil inside. What? Her voice rose, attracting the attention of Liam O'Connell, our senior cloud architect, who was just approaching with 2 mugs of coffee. Why? Apparently, I said, carefully wrapping the little succulent in tissue paper scavenged from the recycling bin. Taking my approved bereavement leave after my father died wasn't showing the proper level of commitment to Project Phoenix. Olivia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Liam's face, usually quick with a joke or a supportive grin, transformed into a mask of disbelief, then slow-burning anger. That's unbelievable, Avery. Have you talked to Eleanor? Liam asked, his knuckles white around the coffee mugs he still held. Eleanor Vance needs to know about this. This isn't right. No, I said, placing the wrapped plant gently into the box. Marcus sent the notification via chat this morning. Via chat? Liam echoed, incredulous. He fired you over chat? After your dad just... He trailed off, shaking his head. I'm not going to fight it, Liam, I continued, my voice low but firm. Apex has made its decision. But I won't forget it. You learn to read the micro-expressions of people you work closely with for years. As I resumed packing, methodically adding notebooks, a framed industry award, and a spare charger to the box, the rest of my core team arrived. Drawn by the hushed, tense atmosphere spreading around my cubicle, Sophia Rossi, our empathetic customer success manager, saw the box and her eyes immediately welled up. Noah Vance, our quiet but fiercely principled software engineer, stood stiffly, his jaw tight. Caleb Jones, Isabella Garcia, Chloe Dubois, Maya Singh, they gathered around, their faces a mixture of shock, confusion, and growing fury directed not at me, but at the unseen forces behind this. This is absolute bull dash, Liam started again, louder this time. I cut him off with a small, sharp shake of my head. It's done, Liam. Marcus made his decision, but... Project Phoenix just hit the key milestone last month. Caleb protested, his voice tight with frustration. Our metrics are the best in the company, 18% above target this quarter, largely because of your strategic planning. I managed a faint, humorless smile. Apparently, past performance wasn't enough. By 9:30 a.m., all 8 members of my core team stood around my desk, a silent, protective phalanx. Noah looked like he was seriously contemplating putting his fist through the nearest wall partition. Sophia was openly weeping now, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. You can't just leave, Avery, Sophia insisted, her voice thick with emotion. The Omnicorp contract renewal presentation is next week. The Aeroglide logistics migration is mid-flight. None of us understands the back-end intricacies the way you do. I finished taping the cardboard box shut with unnecessary precision, the screech of the tape gun loud in the tense silence. Marcus should have considered that, I stated calmly, before he fired me for attending my father's funeral. The weight of my words settled heavily in the air. My father, the brilliant, kind engineer who had sparked my own love for technology, gone just a week. The freshly turned earth at the cemetery still vivid in my memory. And now this cold, calculated betrayal from a company I had dedicated 5 years of my life to. A company whose success I had significantly contributed to. I need everyone back at their workstations. Now. The sharp, imperious voice cut through the heavy silence. Marcus Thorne stood just behind my team, arms crossed tightly over his chest, his thin face etched with annoyance, completely devoid of empathy. His eyes scanned the group, deliberately avoiding mine. We have deadlines to meet for Project Phoenix. Sentimentality won't get the work done. No one moved. The silent solidarity of my team was a palpable force. Now. Marcus repeated, his voice rising, a vein pulsing in his temple. After another long, charged moment, my team members slowly began to disperse, each giving me a look filled with unspoken support, anger, and concern as they reluctantly returned to their desks. Marcus approached my cubicle, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial, yet still condescending, tone. This could have been handled with more discretion, Avery, if you'd simply waited until the end of the day to pack your things. His focus was on optics, not the human cost. I finally met his gaze, holding it steadily, my own eyes cold. Like the discretion you showed firing me via a chat message right after I returned from burying my father? After you personally approved my bereavement leave? His jaw tightened, a flicker of something, annoyance? Defensiveness? Crossing his features. Business needs change rapidly, Avery. Apex Solutions needs leaders who understand that priorities shift dynamically in the tech landscape. My father's passing was unfortunate timing, but Don't, I warned, my voice dropping to a dangerously quiet level. Don't you dare finish that sentence, Marcus. For a brief second, something that might have been uncertainty, perhaps even a sliver of fear, flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual mask of managerial authority. He straightened his already perfect tie. Human Resources is expecting you in conference room 3B. Evelyn Hayes. Please don't make this process any more difficult than it needs to be. I picked up my box, its weight surprisingly manageable. Don't worry, Marcus, I said, my voice devoid of inflection. I won't make a scene. I paused at the edge of the cubicle, turning back slightly. But remember this morning. Remember this conversation. You might find it becomes relevant later. The Human Resources meeting room, 3B, was exactly as I remembered it from onboarding, minimalist, modern. With glass walls offering a curated view of the bustling office floor. Designed perhaps to reinforce the idea of transparency while maintaining absolute control. Evelyn Hayes, a senior HR business partner with whom I'd had only brief, professional interactions before, sat waiting at the sleek conference table. Her expression was professionally sympathetic, honed by years of navigating difficult corporate conversations. But I could see a flicker of genuine discomfort in her eyes as I entered. She wasn't new like the HR rep in the original story. Evelyn was experienced, sharp, and knew the company's underbelly. Avery, please sit down, she said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. I was very sorry to hear about your father. My condolences. Thank you, Ms. Hayes, I replied, setting my box down beside the chair and taking a seat. I kept my back straight, my expression neutral. She slid a tablet across the table, displaying the separation agreement. We need to go through the exit paperwork. Standard procedure. I scanned the document on the tablet. Standard severance, 2 weeks pay, laughable considering my tenure and performance. A non-disparagement clause, naturally. And a stark reminder of the non-compete agreement I'd signed 5 years ago, heavily weighted with clauses specific to cloud technologies. Client data, and proprietary software, far more restrictive than standard in the logistics industry. It prohibited working for direct competitors in the cloud solution space within Texas for a full year. Is there anything I should be aware of regarding the reason for this termination, Ms. Hayes? I asked, keeping my tone measured, professional. This seems rather abrupt, given my team's recent success with Project Phoenix and the Omnicorp account. Evelyn shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She tapped her stylus on the tablet. The documentation cites failure to maintain leadership presence during a critical phase. I held her gaze. You mean the 3 days of approved bereavement leave I took for my father's funeral? I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and showed her the screenshot of Marcus's chat message and the attached PDF. This was the notification I received this morning. No prior warnings, no performance improvement plan, just this. Evelyn's carefully constructed professional mask slipped. Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly as she took in the cold, digital finality of the message. This wasn't standard procedure, even for Apex. Just a chat message, she murmured, almost to herself. No formal meeting? No documented conversations? She frowned, making a quick note on her own tablet. I may need to circle back with legal on the specifics of the notification protocol in this instance. Would you excuse me for just a moment? As Evelyn stepped out of the glass-walled room, presumably to have a hushed, urgent call, I gazed out at the expansive view of Austin. Not a river this time, but the sprawling city, already buzzing with energy below. My father, a brilliant software engineer himself, had loved Austin. He'd brought me here for a tech conference when I was in college. Excited about the city's burgeoning potential, he taught me resilience, not by a riverbank, but debugging late-night code together. The bugs will always swarm, Avery, he'd said, peering over my shoulder at a screen full of errors. But the core logic, the foundation, has to be solid. Build it strong, test it thoroughly. And it'll hold. Be the solid foundation, he meant. Evelyn returned about 15 minutes later. Her expression was carefully neutral again. But the slight tension around her mouth told me everything I needed to know. Nothing would change. Not today. Unfortunately, Avery, she began, choosing her words carefully, Texas is an at-will employment state. Apex is technically within its rights regarding the termination itself, provided it doesn't violate specific contractual obligations or discrimination laws. I understand the concept of at-will, Ms. Hayes, I interrupted quietly, picking up the stylus and electronically signing the separation agreement on the tablet without further argument. My signature felt surprisingly steady. Apex Solutions can do whatever it deems necessary for its business. Just like I can. She hesitated, then leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. Off the record, Avery, this feels wrong. The optics are terrible, and frankly, the justification seems flimsy given your track record. If you were considering pursuing legal action regarding the non-compete, given the circumstances, I appreciate that, Ms. Hayes, I said firmly, meeting her gaze. But I'm not interested in a legal battle right now. Thank you for your time. I stood up, picking up my box. As I walked through the open-plan office toward the main elevators, I felt dozens of eyes following me. My team watched silently from their desks, their faces a mixture of somber respect and simmering anger on my behalf. I offered them a small, reassuring smile, my final act as their leader at Apex. It felt like shedding a skin. Outside, the late September Texas air was warm and heavy. I placed the box carefully in the trunk of my practical sedan, the thud echoing in the sudden quiet. Sliding into the driver's seat, I finally allowed myself a moment, just one, to let the reality sink in. The shock, the grief for my father, the sting of betrayal, it all washed over me in a dizzying wave. My phone, resting on the passenger seat, chimed. Then again. And again. Messages flooded my screen via our team's private signal chat, bypassing the monitored company channels. Liam, this is beyond wrong, Avery. What can we do? We stand with you. Sophia, are you okay? Please tell me you're okay. Can we meet up later? Drinks are on me. Lots of drinks. Noah, Marcus is a spineless coward. The entire team is furious. This won't stand. More messages poured in from Caleb, Isabella, Chloe, Mia, Olivia, expressions of outrage, unwavering support, fierce loyalty. These weren't just colleagues bound by project deadlines. They were my professional bedrock, my partners in innovation. A fierce sense of responsibility washed over me, momentarily eclipsing the anger and hurt. I started the engine, the familiar hum grounding me. A plan began to form, not born of anger, but of cold, calculated strategy. I wouldn't fight Apex Solutions head-on in a messy, public lawsuit, even though Mr. Shapiro might later tell me I had strong grounds. No. I would be strategic. Patient. I would build something better. Be the solid foundation, Dad had said. The core logic must hold. My phone rang, vibrating insistently against the leather seat. The caller ID displayed a name I recognized instantly, Julian Croft. The visionary founder and CEO of Stratos Dynamics, Apex Solutions' most innovative and rapidly growing competitor in the cloud infrastructure space. We'd met briefly at the Cloud Summit Expo in Vegas last year after my presentation on multi-cloud orchestration strategies. He'd impressed me with his sharp questions and forward-thinking vision. We'd connected on LinkedIn, exchanged a few messages about industry trends. But nothing more. He'd been complimentary about my work then. Apparently, he'd kept tabs. It was time to return his call. Or rather, answer it. The Stratos Dynamics headquarters, located in a sleek new tower overlooking downtown Austin, was everything Apex Solutions wasn't. Open concept workspaces buzzed with collaborative energy, not silent tension. Natural light streamed through massive windows, illuminating walls covered in whiteboards filled with complex diagrams and bold ideas. The air crackled with innovation. Julian Croft, a man whose energy seemed barely contained by his tailored suit, greeted me not with a handshake, but with a warm, welcoming smile that reached his keen eyes. Avery, I'm so glad you agreed to meet on such short notice, he said, guiding me toward a bright, airy conference room with stunning views of the city. Though I have to admit, the circumstances under which you became available. Let's just say Apex's loss is potentially Stratos' significant gain. Word traveled blindingly fast in the Austin tech scene, amplified by LinkedIn updates and back-channel industry gossip. Julian already knew I'd been terminated, though likely not the raw, infuriating details. I filled him in briefly, factually, as we sat down at the polished concrete conference table. I didn't show him the chat screenshot, that felt too raw. Too personal for this initial meeting, but I explained the situation clearly, the approved bereavement leave. The sudden dismissal citing critical project needs, the non-compete. Julian listened intently, his expression shifting from professional interest to visible disapproval. Firing a high-performing leader for taking approved bereavement leave, he said, shaking his head slowly. That's not just poor management, Avery. That's a fundamental lack of decency. It speaks volumes about Apex's culture. Apex has always prioritized quarterly earnings above all else, I replied, my voice carefully neutral. I just never imagined I'd be the one deemed expendable for honoring my father. Julian leaned forward, his gaze direct and focused. I'll be blunt, Avery. I was incredibly impressed by your Cloud Summit presentation last year. Your insights into multi-cloud strategy were spot on. I've followed your team's work on the Omnicorp account from afar, remarkable execution. Stratos is rapidly expanding our enterprise cloud solutions division, and frankly, we need someone with your exact skill set and leadership experience. I want you on my team. He didn't hesitate. I'm prepared to offer you the position of principal cloud strategist. It's a senior role, reporting directly to me. Focused on shaping our next-generation offerings and leading key client engagements. Significantly more strategic scope than your previous role. My breath caught. Principal cloud strategist. It wasn't just a step up, it was a leap. More influence, broader responsibilities. Direct impact on the company's trajectory. And presumably, compensation to match. What about my non-compete? I asked, the practical concern momentarily overriding the surge of possibility. It's Texas-based, a year long. Specifically targets cloud competitors. Julian waved a dismissive hand, though his expression remained serious. Our legal counsel has already taken a preliminary look at the standard Apex agreement. They believe it's likely overly broad and potentially unenforceable under Texas law. Especially given the circumstances of your termination, firing you without cause significantly weakens their position. He met my eyes. Stratos Dynamics will, of course, cover all legal expenses should Apex be foolish enough to challenge it. We believe talent like yours shouldn't be sidelined by punitive, outdated clauses. The confidence in his voice was reassuring, but the risk was still real. I need some time to think about this, Julian, I said carefully. And I need to consult with my own attorney. Of course, Julian replied smoothly, standing up as I did. Take the weekend. Talk to your lawyer. Let's schedule a follow-up call for Monday afternoon. We can discuss the specifics of the offer package then. That evening, Friday, I met Sophia and Liam at the Silicon Tapper, a trendy but relaxed bar near the Domain. Known as a popular watering hole for Austin's tech crowd. We found a quiet booth in the back. Far from any potential Apex colleagues who might be unwinding after the week. They arrived together, their faces etched with a mixture of righteous anger on my behalf and genuine concern for me. How are you really holding up, Avery? Sophia asked, sliding into the booth beside me, her eyes scanning my face searchingly. I'm all right, Soph, I assured them, trying to project a calm I didn't entirely feel. It's been a challenging couple of weeks. Losing Dad and then this. But I'll land on my feet. Liam snorted, taking a long pull from his craft beer. Marcus is an absolute idiot. The office is already descending into chaos. He called an emergency huddle this afternoon about the Omnicorp renewal. But nobody knows your latest strategy adjustments or where the final revised proposal docs are saved. Your system access was revoked instantly. Of course. That sounds like a Marcus problem, I replied, taking a deliberate sip of the sparkling water I'd ordered. No alcohol tonight, I needed a clear head. Sophia leaned forward, her voice dropping conspiratorially. It's more than just chaos, Avery. Everyone's talking. Not just our team. People across departments. Even folks in engineering who barely knew you personally. They're furious about how you were treated. The chat message firing? It leaked somehow. I hadn't expected that rapid spread of information, though perhaps I should have in the hyperconnected tech world. You were respected, Avery, Liam stated seriously, his usual joviality absent. Not just by us, but across the company. Even by people who found your standards demanding. The way Marcus handled this, it sent a chill through the place. People are scared. If Apex can do this to you, their star team lead, right after your father died, what does that mean for anyone else who has a family emergency? Or gets sick? Sophia nodded vigorously. Eleanor Vance has been making calls, asking pointed questions about the termination process. She apparently got back from her Seattle trip late last night and hit the roof this morning when she found out. She looks worried. Good, I said simply, a flicker of grim satisfaction piercing through the numbness. As we talked, more messages pinged on my phone from the team's private signal chat, similar stories of disorganization. Mounting frustration with Marcus's increasingly erratic micromanagement, and simmering anger toward Apex leadership. The company was already feeling the impact of my abrupt departure, not just operationally, but culturally. So, what will you do now? Liam asked, voicing the question hanging in the air. I hesitated, swirling the ice in my water. I've had an offer. From Stratos Dynamics. Their eyes widened in unison. Stratos. Sophia breathed. Wow, Avery. That's huge, but you're non-compete. Liam started, practical as ever. Those aren't always enforceable, Sophia jumped in quickly. As a customer success manager dealing with complex contracts daily, she had a good grasp of the legal nuances. Especially not in Texas if they fired you without legitimate cause. And firing someone for bereavement leave sounds pretty illegitimate to me. That's what Stratos's legal team suggested as well, I confirmed. But it's still a potential fight. Apex might try to make an example of me. Liam's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing. Speak of the devil. Marcus is calling an urgent mandatory team meeting for tomorrow morning. Saturday. He's never done that before. The Omnicorp final review materials are due to the client Monday morning, Sophia explained, turning back to me. He probably realized nobody can decipher your final analysis notes or replicate the custom dashboard metrics you built. A small, tight smile touched my lips. Those analyses and dashboards were meticulously documented and stored on the shared company drive. Exactly per protocol. However, my particular system involved complex cross-reference data models that weren't immediately intuitive unless you knew the logic behind them, logic I tried to walk the team through. But Marcus had always dismissed as unnecessarily complicated. I hadn't deliberately sabotaged anything. But I couldn't deny a certain grim satisfaction that my absence was causing immediate, tangible pain. I should probably get going, I said, gathering my purse. I have an early appointment tomorrow. As I stood to leave, Liam caught my eye, his expression serious. Avery, if you did decide to go to Stratos, hypothetically speaking, of course, would they happen to be hiring other experienced cloud specialists? I paused, studying his face, then Sophia's hopeful, anxious expression. Hypothetically, I replied carefully, yes. They're expanding very rapidly. Looking for top talent across the board. The silent, charged look that passed between Liam and Sophia told me everything I needed to know. The seeds were sown. Saturday morning, I met with Isaac Shapiro, a highly recommended labor law attorney whose firm, Shapiro and Associates, specialized in employment issues within the Texas tech industry. His office, located in a modest but professional building near the UT campus, was lined with law books and framed diplomas, projecting quiet competence rather than flashy intimidation. Isaac, a sharp man in his late 40s with a calm demeanor and probing eyes, listened patiently as I recounted the events of the past week. Providing him with the chat screenshot, the formal termination notice, my original offer letter with the non-compete clause, and Marcus's email approving my bereavement leave. This, Isaac said, removing his glasses and rubbing the bridge of his nose after reviewing the documents, is textbook wrongful termination potential, Ms. Mitchell. Firing someone immediately following approved FMLA qualifying leave, even if unpaid bereavement isn't explicitly FMLA. The timing creates a strong presumption of retaliation, could certainly be argued as a violation of public policy and potentially bad faith, significantly impacting the enforceability of the non-compete. I'm not primarily interested in suing Apex for wrongful termination, Mr. Shapiro, I clarified, though the validation felt good. My main concern is understanding my options regarding the non-compete agreement. Stratos Dynamics has made me an offer. Isaac reviewed the non-compete document again, humming thoughtfully. This is indeed restrictive. A full year, statewide prohibition on working for direct competitors in the cloud solutions and services sector. However, he tapped a clause, Texas law generally requires non-competes to be reasonable in scope, duration, and geographic area, and ancillary to an otherwise enforceable agreement. Crucially, the employer's conduct matters. Firing you under these circumstances arguably constitutes a material breach of the employment relationship by Apex, which could render the non-compete unenforceable. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. What's your intended role at Stratos? Principal cloud strategist. Isaac nodded. A senior, strategic role. Apex would need to demonstrate that your employment at Stratos would cause them demonstrable, irreparable harm, likely through the use of specific, confidential trade secrets, not just general skills and knowledge. Given that they terminated you abruptly and seemingly without cause related to your performance or conduct, that's a very high bar for them to clear. He scribbled some notes on a legal pad. My assessment? Proceed with the Stratos offer, but do so cautiously. Document everything. Be prepared for Apex to potentially send a cease and desist letter or even file for a temporary restraining order, mostly as an intimidation tactic. However, I believe we would have strong grounds to fight it, and fight it successfully. The optics for Apex pursuing this would be atrocious. He looked at me directly. Don't let this overly broad non-compete, wielded by an employer acting in apparent bad faith, prevent you from accepting a significant career opportunity. Over the rest of the weekend, my phone continued to buzz intermittently with updates from the team's Signal chat. The urgent mandatory Saturday morning meeting with Marcus had apparently been a disaster. He was stressed, accusatory, and pressured everyone to absorb my workload and responsibilities immediately, offering no additional support or compensation. The OmniCorp analysis files had been located, but as Sophia predicted, nobody could fully replicate my methodology or explain the nuanced projections to Marcus's satisfaction. Team morale, already low, plummeted further. By Sunday evening, sitting alone in my quiet Austin apartment, the setting sun casting long shadows across the living room, my decision was made. Isaac's assessment, Julian's confidence, and my team's unwavering support solidified my resolve. Apex had broken faith, I owed them nothing. Monday morning, I called Julian Croft precisely at the agreed-upon time. Julian, it's Avery Mitchell. Avery. Good to hear from you. What did you decide? I accept your offer for the principal cloud strategist position, I told him, my voice steady and clear. But I have one condition. Name it, Julian replied without hesitation. I want to build my own team eventually, I stated. And right now, my former core team members at Apex Solutions are exploring other opportunities. If any of them apply to Stratos, I want your assurance that they will receive fair and thorough consideration based on their skills and experience. There was a brief pause, then Julian chuckled softly. Avery, if they're even half as talented and dedicated as you clearly inspire them to be, we'd be fools not to consider them seriously. Send them our way. Talent attracts talent. We trust your judgment. That afternoon, I electronically signed the formal offer letter from Stratos Dynamics. Principal Cloud Strategist. The salary was a significant 40% higher than my total compensation at Apex, with a substantial signing bonus and a much better benefits package. The weight of uncertainty began to lift, replaced by a surge of anticipation. As I logged off the Stratos HR portal, I checked my phone. 8 new messages waited in the Signal chat, one from each core member of my former team. They all wanted to meet for coffee. Privately. Urgently. Tuesday morning, I sat nursing a latte at a quiet corner table in Merritt Coffee, a spot downtown known for good coffee and relative anonymity. I arrived early, watching the morning bustle outside. Liam arrived first, looking determined. Then Sophia, her eyes bright with purpose. One by one, Noah, Caleb, Isabella, Chloe, Maya, and Olivia joined us, pulling chairs from adjacent tables until we formed a tight, conspiratorial circle. Apex is officially imploding, Noah said without preamble, his usual reserve replaced by blunt frustration. Marcus is micromanaging every line of code, demanding hourly status updates. Eleanor is breathing down his neck constantly, copied on every email. Key clients are asking pointed questions about project delays and leadership transitions. The Omnicorp team lead actually threatened to pull out during a call yesterday, Sophia added, her voice low and intense. They specifically asked why you weren't on the call and weren't satisfied with Marcus's evasive answers about your sudden departure. I sipped my latte, listening intently as each of them shared similar stories, escalating chaos, plummeting morale. Marcus's increasingly desperate attempts to assert control, and a pervasive sense of instability. We heard, through the grapevine, that you've accepted a position at Stratos, Liam finally said, his gaze fixed on mine. The others fell silent, watching me with unwavering attention. News certainly travels fast in this town, I observed wryly. We want to come with you, Avery, Sophia stated firmly, her voice ringing with conviction. The others nodded in emphatic agreement. A chorus of determined faces around the table. I studied each of them, moved by their loyalty but also aware of the gravity of their decision. You all have established positions at Apex, I said carefully. Relatively secure jobs, despite the current turmoil. Are you absolutely sure you want to risk that? Jumping ship en masse. What security? Isabella countered bitterly, her usual cool demeanor cracking. If Apex could discard you like that, Avery. After everything you achieved, right after your father's funeral, none of us feel safe there anymore. It's toxic. Stratos is hiring aggressively, I acknowledged, choosing my words with care. I can't make any promises about specific roles or guarantee outcomes. But I can absolutely refer each of you and ensure your applications get serious attention from their recruiters. Way ahead of you, Maya revealed, a small, determined smile playing on her lips. She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of an application confirmation email from Stratos Dynamics' career portal. All 8 of us submitted our applications yesterday evening. For various relevant open positions. I couldn't hide my surprise this time. My own team, applying before I even formally accepted the offer or spoke to them about it. You applied before we even talked? We trust you, Avery, Olivia said simply, her voice resonating with the group's sentiment. Where you go, we believe is the right place to be. We know you wouldn't go somewhere that wasn't better. A powerful surge of emotion washed over me, gratitude so profound it almost brought tears to my eyes. Mixed with a fierce sense of vindication and determination. These people weren't just following me, they were choosing a better future, together. All right, I said, my voice thick with emotion for a moment before I cleared my throat. Let me make some calls to Julian and Stratos HR. Let them know to expect your applications. The following Monday, my first official day at Stratos Dynamics hadn't even properly begun when my phone rang at 7:30 a.m. The caller ID displayed a name I hadn't expected to see again so soon, Eleanor Vance. VP of West Coast Operations at Apex Solutions, Avery. Eleanor's voice was strained, attempting a calmness it didn't possess. We need to talk. Urgently. Good morning, Eleanor, I replied, keeping my tone cool and professional as I navigated the Austin morning traffic towards the Stratos Tower. What can I do for you? I've just received 8 resignation letters this morning. All from your former core team members. Effective immediately. All citing new opportunities elsewhere. There was a pointed pause. Care to shed some light on this remarkable coincidence? I took a slow, deliberate breath. Eleanor, I'm not sure what explanation you're looking for. As you know, I no longer work for Apex Solutions. My former colleagues are talented professionals capable of making their own career decisions. They're all going to Stratos Dynamics, aren't they? Where you just started as principal cloud strategist. Her voice hardened, shedding the pretense of collegiality. This doesn't look good, Avery. It looks like orchestrated poaching. People make career choices for a multitude of reasons, Eleanor, I countered smoothly. Perhaps you should be asking Marcus Thorne why Apex is highest performing. Most cohesive teams suddenly decided en masse that their futures lie elsewhere. What conditions at Apex might have prompted such a unified exodus? This is about your termination, isn't it? She sighed, the fight seeming to drain from her voice, replaced by weary resignation. I've reviewed the entire situation. Marcus acted unilaterally while I was out of town. He didn't consult me or HR properly before issuing that termination notice. I would never have approved it. Especially not under those circumstances. That's an internal matter between you and Marcus, Eleanor, I replied coolly. Though I remain curious why a VP of operations wasn't involved in the termination process for a key regional lead responsible for major clients like Omnicorp and Aeroglide. Eleanor let out a frustrated sigh. Marcus claimed it was an urgent performance issue tied directly to Project Phoenix stability that couldn't wait for my return from the Seattle Cloud Summit. He framed it as decisive action. I trusted his judgment. Clearly, her voice turned bitter, that was a critical error. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch, punctuated only by the hum of my car's engine. Look, Avery, Eleanor finally continued, her tone shifting to one of desperate negotiation. I'm prepared to make this right. I want to offer you your regional lead position back. Immediately. With a 15% raise over your previous salary. Plus a formal apology from the company, and I'll personally put you on an accelerated track for a director role within the year. We need you. Your expertise. Omnicorp is making serious noises about reviewing their contract. The offer was tempting, playing on the desire for vindication, for reinstatement. But it was too little, far too late. The trust was irrevocably broken. I appreciate the offer, Eleanor, truly, I said, my voice calm but resolute. But I've already accepted a position at Stratos Dynamics. I signed the contract last week. We'll match whatever Stratos is paying. Plus another 15%, she countered instantly, the desperation escalating. Name your price, Avery. It's not about the money, Eleanor. Then what is it? What would it take to bring you back? Her voice was tight with panic now. Losing 8 key technical employees simultaneously wasn't just embarrassing, it was operationally catastrophic. Especially with major client contracts hanging in the balance. The loss of institutional knowledge alone was devastating. It would take a time machine, Eleanor, I interrupted softly but firmly. It would take going back to the week my father died. And having Apex Solutions, specifically Marcus Thorne, show a shred of basic human decency instead of punishing me for grieving. It would take undoing the callousness that revealed the company's true priorities. The line went quiet. I could almost hear her processing the finality in my tone. I need to go, Eleanor, I said, pulling into the Stratos parking garage. I start my new position today, and I don't want to be late. Your non-compete agreement. She began, a last-ditch threat. Feel free to have Apex's legal team contact my attorney, Isaac Shapiro, I replied evenly. His contact information is readily available. Though, I added, unable to resist a parting shot. They might want to carefully review the specific circumstances of my termination and Texas case law regarding bad faith before they proceed. After hanging up, a sense of closure washed over me. I took a deep breath and walked into the Stratos Tower, ready to begin. Julian met me in the vibrant lobby, his face beaming. Welcome officially, Avery. Heard the news this morning, Apex is having a rough start to their week, he said with a knowing grin. We're fast-tracking the interviews for all 8 of your former colleagues. Their resumes and initial screenings are incredibly impressive. Interviews start Wednesday. Thank you for giving them a fair and expedited chance, Julian, I replied sincerely. Fair chance. Avery, they're top-tier talent according to our recruiters, he countered enthusiastically. Apex's monumental mistake is Stratos' strategic advantage. We're lucky to get them. 2 days later, I received another unexpected call, this time a private message on LinkedIn from Evelyn Hayes at Apex HR. Avery, her message read, marked urgent. Strictly off the record. Marcus Thorne was placed on administrative leave this morning. Pending a full review. Eleanor is launching a formal investigation into his management practices. Particularly concerning the handling of leave policies and the circumstances surrounding your departure and the team's subsequent resignation. That's interesting news, Evelyn, I typed back cautiously. Thank you for the update. The board of directors is involved now, her next message came quickly. Losing an entire specialized team. Particularly one handling key accounts like OmniCorp, directly to a major competitor like Stratos, has set off major alarm bells at the highest level. They're reviewing all terminations and departures over the past year. Things are tense here. By Friday afternoon, all 8 of my former team members had received, negotiated, and accepted compelling offers from Stratos Dynamics. We met for celebratory drinks. I had champagne this time at a rooftop bar overlooking the Austin sunset. Glasses clinked. To new beginnings, Sophia declared, her eyes sparkling. And to Avery, Liam added, raising his glass higher, who showed us what real leadership, loyalty, and courage look like. The following week, I received a formal letter via certified mail from Apex Solutions' external counsel. It acknowledged the procedural irregularities surrounding my termination and offered a confidential settlement, including financial compensation significantly exceeding the initial severance, in exchange for releasing Apex from any future claims relating to my employment or termination. After consulting with Isaac Shapiro, who confirmed it was a strong offer likely aimed at avoiding costly litigation and further negative publicity, I accepted it. Not primarily for the money, though it was substantial, but for the implicit, legally binding admission that they knew they had been profoundly wrong. That very same day, news broke internally at Stratos. OmniCorp Industries had officially signed a multi-year, 8-figure contract with Stratos Dynamics for cloud services, specifically requesting that the strategic direction be led by Avery Mitchell and her newly onboard team. Aeroglide Logistics followed suit shortly after. The river of corporate politics had churned violently, but we, the core team, had remained steady, regrouped, and emerged stronger on the other side. Just as my father, my dad, had taught me about strong foundations. 3 months later, I stood at the front of Stratos Dynamics' largest presentation hall, addressing the executive leadership team during the quarterly business review. The projected slides behind me told a compelling story, backed by hard data. The numbers spoke for themselves: 30% growth in our newly formed Enterprise Solutions division, quarter-over-quarter. 4 major enterprise client acquisitions secured. 3 of them highly strategic wins formerly held by Apex Solutions, including Omnicorp and Aeroglide. Operational efficiency improvements implemented by the team had already reduced projected cloud infrastructure costs by 22% against budget. Our division's revenue forecast had been revised upward by 50%. Exceptional work, Avery, Julian Croft said, leading the applause as I concluded my presentation. You and your team haven't just met expectations, you've completely shattered them. This is exactly the kind of impact I knew you could make here. I smiled, deflecting the sole credit. My team deserves the real credit, Julian. Liam, Sophia, Noah, Caleb, Isabella, Chloe, Mia, Olivia, they are the engine driving these results. Their talent, dedication, and collaborative spirit have been remarkable. After the meeting, I returned to my bright corner office to find my 8 core team members gathered, surrounding a cake adorned with sparklers. What's all this? I asked, genuinely surprised. It's been exactly 3 months, to the day, since the last of us officially walked out of Apex and into Stratos, Liam explained, grinning widely. We're celebrating our Apexit Independence Day. I laughed, shaking my head. You're all ridiculous. Ridiculously happy, Sophia added, handing me a plate with a generous slice of cake. Seriously, Avery? Everyone is absolutely thriving here. The culture, the challenging projects, the respect, it's night and day. It was true. Each team member had not only settled in but flourished at Stratos. They had more autonomy, access to better resources and cutting-edge technology, and were receiving the recognition and compensation their contributions deserved. Most importantly, they felt valued as individuals, as experts, not just as interchangeable cogs in a corporate machine. The change in their energy and enthusiasm was palpable. My phone buzzed with a push notification from a tech news site. Apex Solutions announces major restructuring. Layoffs loom amid client exodus and falling share prices. I showed the headline to the group gathered in my office. I heard from an old contact they officially lost the Aeroglide contract last week too, Noah commented, meticulously cutting more cake slices. That's another huge chunk of their remaining enterprise revenue gone. And Marcus Thorne? Officially terminated last Friday, Isabella added, scrolling through her phone. Cleared out his office under security escort. Apparently. Eleanor Vance is trying desperately to right the ship, but... She shrugged, might be too late. I felt no malicious pleasure, no thrill of victory in Apex's struggles. Only a quiet, somber sense of justice served. The company wasn't failing simply because we had left, it was failing because its leadership, embodied by Marcus but enabled by the wider culture, had prioritized short-term gains and arrogant dismissiveness over its most valuable asset, its people. It had created an environment where loyalty was punished, where attending your father's funeral was deemed a critical lack of commitment. I raised my water glass. May they eventually learn, I said softly, that a company is only as strong, sustainable, and successful as how it treats its people. And to Avery, Maya added, raising her own glass with a warm smile, who showed us we deserved better, and then helped us find it. 6 months after joining Stratos Dynamics, I received an unexpected lunch invitation via LinkedIn message. It was from Eleanor Vance. The message explained she had resigned from Apex Solutions shortly after the disastrous quarterly earnings report and had recently joined a boutique management consulting firm specializing in diagnosing and repairing toxic corporate cultures. We agreed to meet at a quiet restaurant with a patio overlooking Lady Bird Lake. Eleanor looked different. The perpetual tension around her eyes had softened, replaced by a calmer, more reflective demeanor. She seemed lighter. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Avery, she began after we'd ordered. I wanted to apologize. Properly. For my part in what happened at Apex. You weren't the one who fired me, Eleanor, I reminded her gently. No, she acknowledged, swirling the wine in her glass. But I was part of the leadership structure that allowed a manager like Marcus to operate unchecked for so long. I enabled the environment. The profits over people a culture that made his actions possible, even if I didn't directly pull the trigger. After you and your entire team walked out, everything began to unravel with terrifying speed. She sighed, looking out at the kayakers paddling on the lake. The board brought in external consultants. Their final report on Apex's culture, leadership failures, and operational vulnerabilities was brutal. Damning, really. For all of us in senior leadership, myself included. I nodded, listening quietly. As you probably heard, Eleanor continued, meeting my gaze. Apex Solutions is being acquired by Quantum Leap Technologies. It's essentially a fire sale, a fraction of its valuation from just a year ago. Quantum Leap is mostly interested in the client list, what's left of it, and some specific physical infrastructure assets. The Apex brand will cease to exist. The news didn't surprise me. Apex had been in a death spiral for months, hemorrhaging clients and key talent across all divisions. What happened to Marcus? I asked, curiosity getting the better of me. Still unemployed, last I heard, she replied with a slight grimace. His reputation within the tech industry is severely damaged. Let's just say your story, and the subsequent exodus of your entire team, circulated very widely among executives and recruiters. I hadn't actively spread the details of my termination, focusing instead on building success at Stratos. But I hadn't hidden the truth either. When asked directly by industry contacts or potential clients why I'd left Apex so abruptly, I told the simple, unvarnished truth. Apparently, the truth had power. I learned a very valuable, if painful, lesson from that whole debacle, Eleanor continued, her voice gaining a new firmness. Now, I'm trying to use that experience to help other companies avoid making the same catastrophic mistakes. Focusing on building genuinely supportive, ethical cultures. As we finished lunch, Eleanor asked the question I sensed had been hovering beneath the surface of our conversation all along. Looking back now, Avery, was it worth it? Leaving like you did? Building something new at Stratos instead of fighting Apex from within or suing them? I thought about my incredible team at Stratos, thriving, motivated, collaborative, treated with the respect they deserved. I thought about the major clients like Omnicorp and Aeroglide who had followed us, who were now benefiting from innovative solutions and genuinely responsive service. I thought about my father, my dad, the engineer who had taught me that the strongest structures are built on solid foundations, and that sometimes the most powerful response isn't the loudest explosion, but the quiet, methodical construction of something far superior. Yes, Eleanor, I replied simply, a sense of profound certainty settling over me. Absolutely. The results speak for themselves. 1 year after that cold, impersonal chat message had irrevocably altered the course of my career. Stratos Dynamics announced my promotion to Chief Technology Officer CTO. My former division, now significantly expanded, had become the company's innovation engine and primary revenue driver. Lauded for its cutting-edge solutions and boasting the highest employee satisfaction and retention scores in the entire organization. Each of my original 8 team members had also earned significant promotions. Liam O'Connell now headed the entire cloud architecture department. Sophia Rossi had been promoted to global head of customer success, transforming Stratos' client relationship approach. Noah, Caleb, Isabella, Chloe, Maya, and Olivia had similarly distinguished themselves in senior technical and leadership roles. Their talents finally unleashed and receiving the recognition and appreciation they had long deserved at Apex but never received. On the precise anniversary of my termination from Apex Solutions, a small, unexpected package arrived at my Stratos office. Inside, nestled in bubble wrap, was my old succulent plant from my Apex desk, noticeably larger now, green and thriving. Tucked beside it was a handwritten note on plain cardstock from Evelyn Hayes, the former Apex HR partner. Rescued this from your old desk the day after you left, the note read. Figured you might want it back. Heard you landed well. Apex officially closes its doors for good next week. Wishing you continued growth. Evelyn. I smiled and placed the resilient little plant on my spacious new windowsill, where it would get plenty of sunlight. Like me, it seemed. It had not only survived being abruptly discarded but had found a much better environment in which to grow and flourish. That evening, I drove out to Zilker Park as the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the Austin skyline. I stood near the edge of Barton Springs Pool, watching the water ripple, thinking of my father. The steady flow, the underlying currents. The solid ground beneath. I thought about how a single moment of corporate callousness, a cold message delivered in the shadow of personal grief, had paradoxically become the catalyst for immense positive change, leading to greater professional success, deeper fulfillment, and profound happiness, not just for me, but for the entire team who had bravely taken the leap with me. "You were right, Dad," I whispered softly towards the darkening sky, feeling his presence beside me, not in sadness, but in quiet pride. "Sometimes you just need to stay steady, trust your foundation, and let the current carry away the debris." As I looked back on the incredible journey of the past year, from terminated team lead grieving her father to CTO of a thriving tech company, I realized the true nature of my revenge. It hadn't been about destroying Apex Solutions. Their own toxic culture had done that far more effectively than I ever could. My real revenge, the most satisfying kind, had been in building something demonstrably better. A workplace culture at Stratos where bereavement leave was met with compassion, not suspicion. Where people were valued for their expertise and humanity, not just their productivity metrics. Where leadership was defined by empowerment, trust, and shared success, rather than by fear, control, and micromanagement. The greatest revenge wasn't tearing down what hurt you, it was creating something so fundamentally sound, so human-centric, so successful, that it rendered the old, broken system completely obsolete. My father, the brilliant engineer who believed in elegant solutions and strong foundations, would have been incredibly proud of that. Looking toward the future, bright with possibility, I felt nothing but deep gratitude for the winding, sometimes painful path that had brought me here. Even the sharpest turns, the darkest moments. Sometimes, the worst experiences forge the strongest foundations and lead to the most unexpected, beautiful outcomes, if you remain as steady and resilient as the rocks while the river of change inevitably rushes past.